When we last left off, Ben had actually unlocked this new Godzilla-like form in order to combat against the likes of Kaiser. However, Kaiser, in the thrill of battle, revealed his Ghidorah form. And now we have it, the final clash between these two. How is it going to end? On a good note, on a bad note, or is it just going to cause mass destruction all over? The answer is very simple. Yes, let's talk about it. The golden light fades as the Ghidorah form is revealed, and Ben, Gwen, Kevin, Julie, and everyone else around them looks in absolute horror at what they see. And Kaiser admits he's never had to reveal this form at all. Not even for, let's see, how long was I around? Yeah, so kind of forgot about it. And he simply walks towards Ben slowly as Ben backs off, like just tries to back away. However, Kaiser begins to pick up speed as Ben tries to backpedal, and he gets slammed into by Kaiser and just thrown into a harbor, crashing through crates, ships, and even buildings. Luckily, they were evacuated, so nobody dies. And Kaiser says, "Don't tell me you're scared now, little Ben. Are you really gonna let all these people see you as a coward? Ugh, I thought you were the greatest hero in the universe. I thought you saved the universe so many times, yet here you are, terrified? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe you can't even give me that kind of fight." However, Kaiser is then hit, surprisingly, by an atomic breath, which does push him back. However, he again simply laughs at this, as again, Ben can't really harm him, at least not with this current level of power. And Kaiser retaliates with his own attack, as Ben and the others actually see electricity from his stomach go all the way up to his throats, all three of them, and then his mouth opens wide and he blasts Ben with this attack. This attack sends him sprawling further into the impact zone he already made, now making a much bigger crater. Into which Kaiser does monologue that his gravity beams have been known to torch entire solar systems just on a casual day. And to think you can't even withstand a simple blast? Ben. How disappointing this is right now. I thought you were everything that I wanted in an opponent. But it seems like now you've reached your limitation. However, Kaiser sees something in Ben, this anger, this primal rage in this form. And looking into his eyes, he smiles at it, telling Ben to come on, give him your best shot. And this is where Ben leaps out of the hole and tackles him right back into the harbor and begins wailing on all three heads, or at least trying his best to. To which this is where Kaiser manages to kick Ben off him, and then the two of them clash, creating a shockwave, which Gwen has really no choice but to try and contain the blast or block the blast with her mana. And so the back and forth between these two is just vicious. They're biting each other, slamming into each other, letting go of their, I guess you could say, more human-like urges and fighting like animals. To the point where Kaiser simply grabs Ben by the throat and his arms with his three heads, slams him into the ground, and then drags him through the entire harbor, even spinning around and tossing him. But Ben utilizes the opportunity to not only regain his footing, but to charge back with a much stronger atomic breath. This one, however, knocks Kaiser off his feet, and Ben utilizes the opportunity to, well, try and pounce on him. However, this is where Kaiser's tails simply just grab him by the legs midair and slam him back down in, well, kind of in front of him, or basically, slam him down on his back. This is where Kaiser gets up and then begins to launch a powerful gravity beam at Ben, sending him further back. The battle between these two seems never ending. Each slash, bite, and tear at each other is even spilling out into the harbor with their blood or the blood of their respective forms simply mixing and mingling within the water. And unbeknownst to them, they're being noticed, or at least this is being noticed by someone. This being a Forever Knight. And I'll actually say this Forever Knight is Driscoll. And so, as the battle continues, he actually waits for the blood to get close enough for him to scoop it up without anyone noticing and leaves with it. Who knows what kind of repercussions this will have? And well, the clash continues between the two until they both are about to launch their attacks at the same time. Gravity beam versus atomic breath. The beams collide, pushing against each other. However, not wanting to give an inch to the other, they dig their respective claws and feet into the ground and try to push at each other. However, seeing that this is again going nowhere, Ben takes a step closer, then Kaiser, then Ben, then Kaiser, as these blasts begin to reach the core of each other. And in a blinding and flashing light of explosion, both of them are knocked out. Kaiser having a satisfied smile on his face, while Ben looks exhausted and tired. But he actually is smiling and says that it really did feel good. It really does feel that good. To which Kaiser says, "See, I told you. Cutting loose can be fun, especially when you have someone you know can take it, right? And to think I've never been stalemated in my form. You are indeed a man of many wonders, Ben 10." But before Ben sinks into the water, clearly exhausted, Kaiser manages to grab him just in time and actually carries him back to shore where he sets him down in front of Julie, Ben, and, well, Julie, Kevin, and Gwen. And Julie simply asks Kaiser as she's checking on Ben, "Are you going to take over Earth?" To which he looks at her like, "What do you mean? I didn't come for that at all. I came for the fight, for the love of the game. Like I'm not trying to take over Earth. I just use it as a threat so that Ben could at least get out here, or at least someone who wear their Omnitrix got out here, and well, it worked." To which this is where Julie looks at him and simply goes like, "So you mean to tell me you were just here to run a fade?" "Yes, I needed it. Do you know how boring it is to have power? So much power, and yet you can't even use it? Do you know what it's like to always feel unstoppable, unbeatable, heck, even untouchable in some cases?" This was the fight that he wanted, that he needed, and ultimately he was happy, satisfied even, and he can't help but feel that, you know? It's the best, and I mean the best opportunity he's ever had to feel this. So, believe it or not, I'm not going to take over Earth. No, no, no. But I do think I want to stay here for a little bit, see what this planet has to offer, and maybe even propose an intergalactic protection. I won't drag you guys to my entire system, even though I really could. But I would actually like to, well, discuss maybe further preparations for other invasions. And plus, I'd like to stay and see how you all handle threats. To which Ben, with really no, reluctance at all, having another strong ally, actually extends his hand and says, "Welcome to Earth." To which Kaiser shakes it. Now, what happens after this? Well, Kaiser actually goes to the Plumbers HQ with Max Tennyson, and obviously the Plumbers kids are a bit skeptical about him actually, being here, but he's not here to join the team. He's way too beyond their level of their level of strength required. So he's going to be with Ben, Kevin, and Gwen a lot more. Speaking of which, what do they actually do with him now that he's on Earth and that Vilgax has never really appeared? Well, believe it or not, while Ben does have to deal with his new fame and fortune, unfortunately, well, fame, not fortune, obviously, he's kind of showing Kaiser around, actually having him enjoy some of the delicacies of Earth as well. However, one slight issue, Kaiser is a bit carnivorous, so it does take him a while to get used to something as fruitful and as beneficial to Ben as chili fries. But he does enjoy some things like hot dogs, fish, burgers, and occasionally any type of meat, no diddy, that he can actually get his hands on. So, in all honesty, Kaiser just is enjoying some of the delicacies. But again, still in the back of his mind, he still wonders whether or not he should go after the Forever Knights. Speaking of which, what are the Forever Knights doing? Well, believe it or not, they have the blood of both Ben's Godzilla form and Kaiser from his Ghidorah form. And well, they begin to experiment on it, with Driscoll pretty much wondering if this is the right idea. Should they be experimenting with, live DNA? Should they be actually able to, doing this? It feels wrong. It feels almost illegal in a way. But as for right now, they really need in a way for whatchamacallit to beat Kaiser at this moment. He's the biggest alien threat that they've seen in years. And obviously because of their prejudice and racial beliefs, they actually do think they're doing the right thing. And believe it or not, I do think the Forever Knights would go on their little alien extermination campaign a lot earlier in the season due to Kaiser's presence. However, one slight change. Pierce doesn't die. And unfortunately, in all honesty, I feel like that was never addressed either. Pierce is one of the few characters that, should have been a part of the Plumber's Kids, at least a lot more often. But he gets killed and no one talks about it as often as they should. He was a prominent character in Helena and even Manny's life. He was their brother. And unfortunately, that just kind of leads to them, kind of writing him off as well. I guess you could say he just wasn't too much of a important character. But in all honesty, I do believe that having, Pierce alive, he's able to at least mature and likely become the leader of the Plumber's Kids like he was in the original. Speaking of which, there are some episodes that do take a little bit earlier and actually go through a lot quicker, such as when the episode of Ben losing his hand to the bounty hunter Sunder. Believe it or not, he doesn't lose his hand in this one here. As with Kaiser there, he's probably able to beat the mess out of Sunder, and thanks to the fact that Ben also still has his Godzilla transformation, he's able to easily overpower Sunder as well. With, again, he honestly doesn't need it, but again, it is still noteworthy at the end of the day. Another episode that will take place differently is In a Charm's Way, with Kevin actually never having to go through, I guess you could say being seduced by Charmcaster. Instead, she targets Kaiser, who's actually out just doing his own regular thing at the moment. Charmcaster tries to seduce him with her magic, but it doesn't work. But ultimately, Kaiser actually does just have a conversation with Charmcaster about why she's trying to get at Gwen. Why is her mana so important? And he actually plays on her ego without even realizing it, calling her one of the most powerful sorceresses that he's ever seen. And in all honesty, Charmcaster likes what this man is laying down. Actually loves the idea of being, I guess you could say, glazed a little bit. And some of the things do happen where this actually, some things do happen differently. And this actually turns into an episode where Charmcaster and Kaiser actually date, with even her revealing her name to him being Hope. And the two not only have a successful date, but it actually it breeds some new ground, if you will. Charmcaster, when she sees Gwen again, or sees Gwen in this episode and they try to warn her, she simply leaves, telling Kaiser that she'll see him around. And when Kaiser says how he'll find her, she says she'll find him. And Kaiser kind of just shrugs and talks about how his date with Charmcaster went, to which Kevin is just like, dang, dude managed to pull a baddie by just stroking her ego. And while Gwen is just kind of in the moment where, she's like, you shouldn't trust her and all that, Kaiser's not really caring about it because, again, he can, in some ways, sense people's emotions. Keep in mind, this was an ability of Ghidorah to be able to read minds. So, believe it or not, he could read Charmcaster's mind if he wanted to and simply, get some sense of deception, if you will. But now let's talk about another thing. Ben and Julie's relationship in this timeline is a lot better. And I do think it's because Ben now has more opportunities to spend time with Julie. I actually do think that instead of having Ben always go around and doing some of the tasks, Kaiser is able to handle it and does take Ben's place from time to time when Julie is not, I guess you could say, the ultimate priority at the moment. I'm not saying Ben's a bad, boyfriend, but he could have been a lot better to Julie because I did like them over Kai. Kai just made absolutely no sense here, in my opinion. I'm just saying. So, believe it or not, Julie and Ben's relationship is a lot stronger, and Ben is a lot more of a supportive boyfriend and is capable of actually being there for her. Meanwhile, I guess you could say some of the missions are kind of just managed by just Kevin and Kaiser, who actually form this little bromance between them and become best friends. While Kaiser is not a mechanic or is good with, I guess you could say, machinery, he does show an interest in it and actually does help Kevin being able to, well, find the flaws in his car and actually makes it better, makes it perfect even. And this actually sparks that bromance between them as, again, someone who actually respects the whole, cars and everything. So, believe it or not, everything's looking well. Everything's looking great. Except for one little thing. The Forever Knights. Oh crap, we almost forgot about them, right? So believe it or not, they actually made a bioorganic superweapon known as Destroyer. However, it's still small. It needs to grow. But right now, they need to find a way for it to grow without causing pandemonium. And they decide that maybe we could release it into the ocean. I mean, who knows what's down there? Who knows what it could feed on, what it could become? And to which this is where one of the Forever Knights, particularly the Squire per se, simply asks, okay, well, what if it does get out of control? What if we need to stop it ourselves? To which this is where Driscoll says precisely, we will stop it. And when we do, we'll be hailed as the heroes of the world and stuff like that. So basically, they did create Destroyer, and they just released out into the ocean, hoping that it would grow, and well, grow it does. It begins to grow slowly, but again, it goes undetected for quite some time, being able to feed on things like fish, then it goes to sharks, then it goes to orcas, then it goes to whales. And this slow progression is going undetected, even by the plumbers, because they don't even know it's even out there just yet. But back with Ben and the rest of them, they're just doing their own thing at the moment. Ben's at a game with Julie. Kaiser actually visits Legerdemain with Charmcaster. And this is actually where they not only share their first kiss, but actually do explore their realm or explore her realm together. However, Kaiser does make an offer that Charmcaster does have to think about. Join him. Be with him out in this realm, in this earth realm. I'm not asking for a normal life because clearly I'm not normal. But being with you makes me feel like I can do anything. And they both resonate this with each other. And well, Charmcaster decides to take him up on his offer. Meaning that, well, Charmcaster, even though she's not entirely evil, but she can become fully good here. So we'll say that due to Kaiser being, around her so much, his personality rubbing off on her, and them actually going back and forth between their respective realms, Charmcaster, believe it or not, decides to temporarily, if not almost permanently, use Legerdemain as kind of like I guess you could say like a scapegoat, if you will. So if like they get into an argument, she'll just go to Legerdemain and just be there for a little bit until she cools down. And vice versa, if you will. So believe it or not, Charmcaster's not going to be in Legerdemain all the time. This also means that some things do change. Gwen and Charmcaster do have to work out their issues, but again, both Kaiser and Kevin both get along, so they kind of have to do it for the sake of their respective boyfriends. So it's like, it's looking good, but it ain't looking great, if you get what I mean. So Yeah, they got some issues to work out. But they managed to resolve their issues in the episode Trade-Off, where Kaiser is pretty much on the back foot due to him never encountering magical artifacts like this. But we're not going to leave it off here. What we're going to leave it off is with Vilgax wanting to partner up with Scare in order to not only take down Ben 10, but to take down Kaiser. However, this is where Zaskare actually states that there may be a being or a creature out in the universe that Vilgax can find and bring to Earth for him to fight both of them. But, just like in the original, Zaskare does break out, or at least Vilgax breaks out to Scare, and while Vilgax goes into space, Zaskare goes to Vilgax's home planet and takes it over. But what is the monster that he is going out to find in the very universe? But hey, that's what I'm going to leave it off here, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Peace.